unpack for you and explain the community project funding process that will once again be a part of this year's fiscal 2023 appropriations. I'm Congresswoman Yvette D. Clarke, and I proudly represent New York's 9th Congressional District in Central and South Brooklyn. Tonight's town hall is dedicated to answering some of your submitted questions. So now let's begin. For those of you that may not be aware, community project funding refers to a section of funding in the annual appropriations bill that Congress must pass each year to fund the federal government. In the community funding section, members of Congress are able to secure funding for small local projects that address important community needs in our district. As members, we receive requests for funding from organizations throughout our district, and in turn, we submit the most qualified of those requests to the House Committee on Appropriations for further vetting and consideration. Last year, we were allowed a total of 10 requests for community projects, and that was after a long period of time where we had not been able to submit these requests. Last year, we finally had that opportunity. This year, the number of requests have increased. The number of projects that will be under consideration has increased to 15. Once my office sends our top request to the House appropriators, the Appropriations Committee staff then vets each community project funding submission for eligibility. If a project is deemed eligible, it can then be included in the final appropriations bill passed by both chambers of Congress and signed into law by the President. So, who is eligible to receive funding under this process? First and foremost, let me state up front that for-profit entities, corporations, are not eligible to apply for and receive community project funding. Only nonprofit organizations and local government entities are eligible as primary grantees of this funding. Nonprofit grantees will also be required to provide evidence of nonprofit status by supplying either the employee identification number or an IRS determination letter. Another important criteria that will be used to determine a project's viability for funding is demonstrated community support. To be deemed a worthy use of federal taxpayer dollars, each project must demonstrate genuine community support. This support can be shown in a number of ways, such as letters of support from elected community leaders, press articles highlighting the need for the requested community project, support from newspaper editorial boards, projects listed on state intended use plans, community development plans, or other publicly available planning documents, and resolutions passed by city councils or boards. Further, it is important to note that all community project funding requests are for only 1 year of funding and cannot include a request for multi-year funding. And lastly, on this matter, let me remind you that our projects that are located in the Ninth District of Brooklyn are the ones that will be funded. Only projects that are located in the Ninth Congressional District of Brooklyn or projects that will have a direct and meaningful impact to the people of the Ninth Congressional District in Brooklyn will be considered by my office. For projects that are located in other congressional districts, please reach out to the member of Congress who represents that specific district in order to apply. So, on to perhaps the most important question of many of you this evening. What kind of projects are eligible for funding? The answer is a bit complicated. The Appropriations Committee has 10 subcommittees with varying jurisdictions accepting community project funding requests. I will briefly review the accounts eligible under each appropriation subcommittee. So pay close attention. The Appropriations Subcommittee on Agriculture, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration, and related agencies has announced that 5 Department of Agricultural accounts will be eligible for community project funding requests. And the 5 eligible accounts are: number 1, the Rural Community Facilities Grants; number 2, the Reconnect Program, Distance Learning and Telemedicine; 3, the Agricultural Research Service; 4, Buildings and Facilities; and 5, the Natural Resources Conservation Service. That is for the Department of Agriculture, and if you're seeking funding under those accounts, know that there are 5 accounts at your disposal. The Appropriations Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, and Science will accept community project funding requests in 6 accounts, including 2 new accounts for fiscal year 2023. The 3 administered by the Department of Commerce, and 2 are administered by the Department of Justice, and 1 is administered by NASA. 2 of the new Department of Commerce accounts are with the National Institute of Standards and Technology. The first new account is for scientific and technical research and services. The other new Department of Commerce NIST account is the Construction and Research Facilities account. The third and final Department of Commerce account is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, also known as NOAA, Operations, Research and Facilities account. Moving to the Department of Justice, the Burn Justice Assistance Grants, also known as JAG, are once again eligible for community project funding. Also, within the Department of Justice jurisdiction is the Community-Oriented Policing Services Technology and Equipment, or COPS Tech Grants. And they are also once again eligible for the community project funding. And finally, NASA's Safety, Security, and Mission Services account. The Appropriations Subcommittee on Defense will once again accept project requests for the same 5 accounts as last year for the respective research development, testing, and evaluation accounts of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Space Force, and defense-wide. The Appropriations Subcommittee on Energy and Water Development will only consider community project funding in the following accounts and areas. For the Corps of Engineers, eligible accounts include investigations, construction, Mississippi River and tributaries, and operation and maintenance. For the Bureau of Reclamation, only the Water and Related Resources account is eligible. Please also note that for both the Corps of Engineers and the Bureau of Reclamation, only authorized projects will be considered eligible for the community project funding. A list of eligible projects can be found on the subcommittee's website. For the Department of Energy, only projects on the following topics will be considered: the energy efficiency, renewable energy, sustainable transportation, cybersecurity, and energy security, emergency response, electricity, energy storage, nuclear energy, fossil energy, carbon management, critical minerals. So please bear in mind that if you have projects that touch on that subject matter, you should go to the website of the Department of Energy to confirm that your project fits within those purviews. The Appropriations Subcommittee on Financial Services and General Government, whose jurisdiction includes the General Services Administration, the Small Business Administration, and other independent executive agencies, announced that the following three accounts will be eligible for community funding projects. Within the General Services Administration's Federal Buildings Fund, the new construction, major repairs and alterations, and basic repairs account, the National Archives and Records Administration's National History Publications and Records Commission account, and additionally, the SBA's Small Business Initiatives account will once again fund projects in support of small businesses. The Appropriations Subcommittee on Homeland Security has announced that two of the Department of Homeland Security accounts in its jurisdiction will be designated for community project funding. The first is the Pre-Disaster Mitigation Account. The second account is the Emergency Operations Center Grant Program. The Appropriations Subcommittee on the Interior, Environment, and related agencies will accept project requests in the following accounts: the National Park Service's Save America's Treasure account, the Federal Land Acquisitions through the Land and Water Conservation Fund, the Environmental Protection Agency state and tribal assistance grants for certain water infrastructure projects, the U.S. Service State and Private Forestry account. On to the Appropriations Subcommittee on Labor, Health, and Human Services. Education and related agencies will accept funding requests under four accounts within the Department of Health and Human Services: Health Resources and Services Administration, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the Children and Families Services Program, and the Aging and Disability Services Program account. Within the Department of Education, two accounts are eligible: the Innovation and Improvement account and the Fund for Improvement of Post-Secondary Education account. And finally, under the Department of Labor, we have the Training and Employment Services account, the Appropriations Subcommittee on Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development. And related agencies will accept requests within four accounts: HUD's Economic Development Initiative, and this may be used for economic and community development activities, including land or site acquisition, demolition and rehabilitation of housing or facilities, construction and capital improvements of public facilities and public services. The three remaining eligible accounts are within the Department of Transportation, and they include the Airport Improvement Program account, as well as accounts for both transit and highway infrastructure projects that are supported by the state and administered by a public entity. And lastly, the Appropriations Subcommittee on Military Construction, Veterans Affairs, and related agencies will accept community project funding requests under each branch of the armed services. So for more information on any of the specific requirements for each account, please visit the Appropriations Committee website or simply contact my office. Lastly, something that I'm sure you're all wondering is, how do I apply? To be considered for the community project funding cycle, please visit my website at clark.house.gov. That's Clark with an E, .house.gov, G-O-V. On my website, please go to the Resources tab on the top right and click on the part that says Fiscal Year 2023. Let me go over that one more time. On my website, please go to the Resources tab on the top right and click the part that says Fiscal Year 2023 Community Project Funding Request. This will take you to my main page for Fiscal Year 2023 requests. Once on this page, please click the link to apply, which will take you to my application form that contains instructions on what information you need to include. Please be sure to fill out this entire form and to the best of your ability so that we have all the information we need to process your request. If further information is required, my staff will reach out to the contact info that you provide. If you have any questions on this throughout the entire process, please don't hesitate to call my office so we may assist you. Well, folks, that concludes my overview of the fiscal year 2023 community project funding process. I hope that you found this information helpful. And now, on to your next question. For these community project requests, does the money that we receive ever need to be paid back? I'm pleased to say that the answer to this question is no. This funding is for a one-time grant from the federal government. There is no money that needs to be paid back, and there is no matching requirement. I run a small nonprofit. This is our next question. But we have a lot of projects that could use this funding. How many of our projects can be funded? And that's a good question. If you have more than one project that needs funding, you can either lump multiple related needs into one large request, or you can choose to submit a separate request for each project. You essentially need to decide, are these projects related enough that we can put them together, or are they different things? Please note that you cannot lump together any projects that fall under different agency accounts. If you have multiple projects that fall under different agency accounts, please submit a separate request for each of those projects. What is the maximum funding that we can apply for? That's our next question. Technically, well, there's no maximum or minimum amount for these requests. However, each dollar in funding that you apply for needs to be accounted for in a budget breakdown. So please be sure to only apply for funding for which you have a clear and immediate need. Last year, the maximum amount of funding we were able to secure for a single project was $3 million. However, most of the requests that we received are far less than $1 million. Next question. What is the deadline to submit my project's information? Please be sure to submit your fully completed form no later than the close of business on Monday, April 25th. Let me repeat that. Please be sure to submit your fully completed form no later than close of business on Monday, April 25th. This will allow us enough time to review all applications before we submit them to the House Appropriations Committee for consideration. However, we will be reviewing applications on a rolling basis, so please try and submit your completed request as soon as possible so that we're able to review it fully before the last minute. And it is also very likely that my staff will need to follow up with you for further information, which is again why it's so important that projects are submitted before the April 25th deadline. Next question. Where can I learn more about the kinds of projects that are eligible? I know this is a lot of information to take in right now, but for more details on this, please visit my website at Clark, that's Clark with an E, .house.gov. This information is also posted below me. So once there, click on the fiscal year 2023 Community Projects Funding Request located on the Resources tab on my website. There's plenty of information there, and we also have helpful links that will allow you the to take, excuse me, that will take you to the information you need to know before deciding whether or not your project is actually eligible to receive funding through this process. Next question. When is the funding actually sent out? And that's an excellent question. Once project requests are submitted to my office and reviewed, we then send the top requests over to the Appropriations Committee for further review. Once they've reviewed and accepted the request for fiscal year 2023, we then have to wait for Congress to pass the annual fiscal year 2023 appropriations bill. After this happens, the federal agencies will begin to distribute funding to all of the community projects that fall under their jurisdiction. To provide a better sense of timing, Congress only recently passed last year's fiscal year 2022 appropriations bill, and the funding included in that bill still needs to be distributed by the federal agencies in charge. So let's get on top of this, and let's make sure that we are successfully submitted. So folks who successfully submitted their request almost a full year ago are still waiting for their grant funding to be dispersed. Unfortunately, with working with the federal government and the House of Representatives, the Congress overall, it can be a very slow process. And there's little we can do to accept except submit the most qualified projects and wait for the next appropriations bill to pass into law. Next question. My organization is based out of Bed-Stuy. Can we still apply? Well, unfortunately, Bedford-Stuyvesant is not within the boundaries of the 9th District of New York. Only projects that are located in the 9th Congressional District in Brooklyn or that have a direct benefit to our constituents will be reviewed by my office. But if your organization is technically not located in our district, that doesn't mean that you're automatically ineligible. All you have to do is demonstrate that the project will either occur in our district or that it will have a sizable impact on the lives of the people who live in this district. However, if you believe that your project will be mostly directed at another area, then I encourage you to reach out to that individual member of Congress to apply. Our entire congressional delegation in the state of New York is currently going through a very similar process as the one that I've explained to you today. Well, everyone, that's it for our time this evening. I want to thank you all for tuning in and for submitting your questions. You know, I was born right here in our district, and I have lived here all of my life. So these projects are of the utmost importance to me. For me, this is personal. As a result of last year's community project funding process, I am proud to say that we brought home almost $18 million to our Brooklyn community right here in the 9th Congressional District for critical projects that range from healthcare to cultural institutions to violence intervention initiatives and so much more. This year, I promise to once again be your voice, be your advocate, and to fight in Congress to ensure that our communities receive the federal support that we both need and we deserve. So please be sure to submit your applications to my office before the April 25th deadline so that we can ensure that our community's most pressing needs have a chance to receive the community project funding. Let me thank you all for tuning in once again. Stay strong, stay healthy, stay blessed, and have a great evening.